I just want him to authenticate it so that there's foundation for it to be admitted.
Any objection to Exhibit 4 being played?
Your Honor, our only objection would be on completeness grounds, and I think some questions in aid of objection might be instructive.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. No, this is not the complete video that you submitted to the police, is it?
This is the complete file.
You clipped that video, didn't it?
No.
You would acknowledge that Mr. Hacker is the last person holding the phone in the video.
Yes.
And you would agree that he handed the phone to staff just after this video cuts off.
That I don't know.
So is it your testimony under oath that it's your understanding that Mr. Hacker stopped the video?
I don't know how the video stopped.
Okay, but you acknowledge he was the last person holding it when it ends?
He would be, yes.
Okay. No further questions. We'll withdraw the objection.
All right, Exhibit 4 is received, and you can play the video.
Thank you, Your Honor. Oh, let me just, I'm sorry, I realized I need to adjust my volume because I have it off so that it won't be disruptive. Okay.
Sir, please, sir. Guys, you want to video me like you did everyone else? I will fucking break your phone.
Here, hey.
Excuse me, sir. Please don't do that. I don't want to have to go into like revoking membership.
Okay, so I apologize. I kind of jumped around at the beginning a little bit. I'm going to play it again so that we can talk about it. So, right there, what's happening right there?
That was the first physical contact when he hit the phone out of my hand and it hit the ground.
Play it again. So at this point, right here, is that Mr. Hacker we can see?
Yes.
Do you know who the gentleman to his right is?
That's Mr. Wallace, gym manager.
And so, because we can see him, you're holding this phone?
Yes.
Okay, so this is when you picked it up.
Yes.
Okay.
Please, sir, please, sir.
Guys, you want to video me like you did everyone else? I will fucking break your phone.
And at that point, what's happening?
That's when he forcibly grabbed it out of my hand.
Okay. Here. Hey.
Excuse me, sir.
Just
Please don't.
what we see here, the stairway, is that the stairs down to the exit that you were talking about?
Yes. And in this still, Mr. Hacker has the phone in his hand.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions to that video, so I'm going to disconnect this. So we talked a little bit about you had seen Mr. Hacker before this date. Are you currently involved in a civil suit against Mr. Hacker?
I am.
Is that suit against Mr. Hacker for the same conduct that we've talked about here today?
Yes. Plus something that has happened after.
And we're just going to talk about what's happening here today, but when did you file that?
Mr. Hacker was served in July of 2020.
And why did you file that suit?
After the May 2019 incident involving Mr. Hacker at the gym, I waited months and months and months for a charge to be brought or charges to be brought against the suspect, and nothing happened. Waited a year and decided to move forward with a civil lawsuit.
Thank you, Mr. No. I don't have any other questions for you now.
Thank you.
Okay, cross-examination.
Hi, Mr. No. You stated under oath just a few minutes ago that the situation became very dangerous for you in Portland
Yes.
and that you were getting death threats.
Yes.
You reported to Sky News in 2021 that you actually fled Portland.
Yes.
You moved to London.
For a time.
So you moved to a totally different country,
Yes.
across an ocean,
Yes.
because of threats you received.
And violence I have suffered.
And violence you've suffered. And that's because you've become very recognizable.
I don't believe it that the violence against me is because I'm recognizable. It's because I do reporting on far left violent extremists who believe in engaging in political violence against their targets.
You don't believe that the fact that you have 1 million Twitter followers has something to do with you being targeted?
No, because there are other celebrities in the political sphere who have even larger followings who don't have to live under the type of safety and security restrictions that I do.
Okay, but you did just testify that you think the targeting is a result of your reporting.
Yes.
Okay, so you would acknowledge then, at the very least, that your online rhetoric and reporting can make you a target.
I acknowledge that there are ideological violent extremists who take issue with my crime reporting.
Yes or no, Mr. No, you would acknowledge that your reporting can make you a target.
Yes.
And by the same logic, you would understand why someone else might not want to be made a target.
Yes.
You understand intuitively that having 1 million Twitter followers, at the time of these events, over 100,000, you tweet about someone, that can make them a target.
Your Honor, I just want to make sure that we're not going to go into a realm that's not relevant to this.
You recognize that when you tweet about someone, they can become a target online.
No, I don't recognize that.
Are you saying under oath that you don't understand your ability with 1 million Twitter followers to potentially make a target of someone that you designate online?
I do reporting on individuals, organizations, and
No,
events.
Thank you. It's a yes or no question.
Ask the question again.
Okay, are you saying under oath that you do not acknowledge that it's possible when you post about someone online to your 1 million followers that they may become a target?
Can you define target?
Receiving unwanted attention, threats, and the kind of violence that you've testified about receiving yourself.
Ask the question again, please.
Okay. Do you acknowledge that when you tweet about someone online, it can potentially make them a target in the same way that you've been targeted?
Yes. Keyword there being potential.
Do you acknowledge it's possible? I'm sorry, Your Honor. I just heard some commentary from the background about what's being said. I just asked the court to direct people to not make any commentary.
Answer. So
Okay. I'll clarify my question. I was not asking whether you agree or disagree. I'm asking whether you have been criticized as such.
Yes, by my detractors.
That includes the Columbia University Journalism Review describing you as a, quote, discredited provocateur.
Your Honor, I'm just going to object. There is no basis for this if we're just.
overruled.
That was an opinion piece by a writer on that publication.
You've received criticism for dishonest reporting.
From my detractors.
You were fired, for example, from Portland State University for comments about Muslims.
I was not fired by Portland State University.
You were suspended as well by Twitter for racial and transphobic rhetoric.
Your Honor, I just feel like we're verging into a realm that is not relevant to the issue at hand.
You've regularly reported on rallies that included far-right groups.
Yes, insofar as both the far right and the far left were present.
Okay, understood. You've live streamed, for example, Patriot prayer events.
Your Honor, again, I'm just going to make a relevance objection. I have an idea of where this is going. If we need to have a separate discussion about this outside of the witness, I think that's fine, but I don't think this is relevant to what is happening.
We believe the evidence adduced today will include that events that I'm probing into were discussed on the date in question. They are immediately relevant. I'm talking about the protests
Discussed by whom?
by Mr. Hacker and Mr. No on May 7th, 2019. That Mr. Hacker's intent relates to some of Mr. No's conduct, his perception of Mr. No's conduct at those events, including something he already testified about, May Day. So just days before they interacted.
So I'm gonna allow the questioning. If it's not relevant,
It's also, we're fully outside the scope of the direct at this point.
okay. So I'm overruling the objection about outside the scope. And in terms of relevance, I'd ask that you kind of get to the meat of this rather quickly, okay?
Fair enough. Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. No, you're aware that some of your reporting, some of your rhetoric online has instigated violence.
No.
You're aware that some of the people that you have posted about have received just the same kind of threats that you've received.
I'm not aware.
So you're not aware of what your Twitter followers are doing?
As you mentioned, I have over 1 million followers on Twitter. I don't read the comments from hundreds of thousands of people.
Understood. So you can't really keep track of what happens as a response to your tweets?
Not in every tweet.
Okay. So it's possible then that some of your reporting has led to violence?
No.
Just a moment ago, you said you don't have the time or you can't keep track of what your followers do. And now you're saying it's not even possible that some of your posting can lead to violence?
It's a theoretical about what could happen, and it wouldn't be accurate for me to give a yes or no answer to that.
The point is
Too
you don't know.
theoretical.
Your Honor, they're asking him to speculate. That's what defense is at. He's asking him to speculate about the actions or thoughts of people that he doesn't know. This is purely speculation. It's not appropriate.
Overruled.
I'll move forward. You were reporting as you testified on May Day.
Yes.
And is May Day kind of a special day in the protest world? Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. What sort of things go on May Day?
Demonstrations and rallies and protests.
Okay. And this occurred just a few days before the 24-hour fitness incident, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You specifically, well, and I just want to make sure, so you're understanding that both you and Mr. Hacker were at that event?
I saw him that day.
Okay, so you saw him there. You reported very specifically that the only violence that day came from the left.
I guess question Nate, objection. When he says you reported, I'm not sure what he's referring to. It would be helpful to know what we're
Okay.
talking about.
I can be more specific. Your online content as a journalist, in the capacity of a journalist about the events that day, indicated that the only violence that day came from the left.
Can you refer to a specific thing that I wrote? Because I don't recall what you're talking about that
You
would
don't recall your
characterize that.
reporting that day?
I posted videos that day. I didn't do commentary.
You did not report that a person who you believed was associated with Antifa had her vertebrae broken, did you?
Your Honor, he's asking him about what he didn't report, and Mr. No's already said he didn't post any commentary and he doesn't remember.
No, Your Honor, he asked to be more specific in that he didn't recall. I'm refining the question. Maybe it'll jog his memory. And this goes directly to something he said, Mr. Hacker said, on the date in question.
All right, objection's overruled.
What's the question?
Did you or did you not report on someone who had their vertebra broken by a Patriot Prayer member?
I tweeted out a video that was recorded by another live streamer that day of an individual being hit with a weapon and collapsing to the ground. That video I shared on my social media.
But you did not report that there were any injuries or any violence other than that perpetrated by people on the left?
Your Honor, he's already answered this question. He said he just posted videos and did not post commentary. We're just going in circles at this point, and it's argumentative.
Your Honor, I'd respond that the witness is doing their best not to answer the questions, which is why I'm having to follow up so many times.
Overruled.
What's the question?
The only posting, the only reporting you did that day that talked about violence was by folks on the left, and specifically it excluded any reference to someone on the left having their vertebra broken.
No, as I just said a moment ago, I posted video that was recorded by another video live streamer that day. I posted my clips on Twitter as well as YouTube, which showed brawling involving left and right.
So you acknowledge today that the right was involved in violence on that day, the right in your mind?
I believe I've always characterized it as a brawl.
Understood. So let's just talk about the actual day in question. So bringing us up to May 7th, 2019. You testified under oath today that Mr. Hacker made some comment about breaking vertebra, and that's when you got really scared.
Yes.
That's your testimony today, under oath.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You told something completely different to the police, didn't you?
No.
You told the police that Mr. Hacker made several statements, including, do you know someone had their vertebra broken?
Predict what I said under oath.
That doesn't contradict what you said. You said under oath that he said a comment about breaking vertebra, and that's what made you really scared.
I didn't remember the full quote.
Okay, so you don't remember.
What I remembered was something about breaking vertebrae.
Okay, so you just misremembered the quote. If Mr. Hacker wanted to destroy this phone, why didn't he stomp on it? Why didn't he throw it off the second story? Why didn't he throw it against the wall? He didn't. The phone was recovered, and the phone itself was fully functional after only about 15 seconds. That sounds like a temporary dispossession. That sounds like what the case law suggests does not qualify as a criminal intent for theft, for robbery. And it also cuts both ways. I mean, he makes two statements. He says, you know, I don't want to be recorded, and I'll break the fucking phone. Is it that he doesn't want to be recorded, or does he literally mean he wants to smash the phone? Your Honor, I put it to you that if he had wanted to smash the phone, he would have.
Your Honor, throughout this trial and that closing, there's been a lot of noise. A lot of talk about Twitter, about Cider Riot, about Antifa, things that defense is asking you to pay attention to read into Mr. Hacker's mindset. That doesn't matter. What matters here are the facts of the case that we have before us. You are the finder of fact and the finder of law, and what we need from you is to look at the facts and determine if they happened and if they apply to the law in this case. And I ask that you ignore all of the noise that is not relevant to the very contained incident on May 7th of 2019. Your Honor, we don't have to show that Mr. Hacker permanently deprived. We just have to show that he attempted. And he did. That is what the facts of this case show. Very clearly, Mr. Hacker is trying to claim that he was scared, but in reality, this all started because he was angry. He confronted Mr. No, and he himself told you. He just took the phone. He wasn't thinking.
If
Right.
someone said, I'm going to steal this pen, I grab it, and as soon as I get it, my conscience hits me. I was like, you know what? I'm not taking that. I put it down. Bang, bang. I still had the intent to permanently steal this pen, right? And so if I found, as a factual matter, if the finder of fact thought that I did intend to steal this as soon as I grabbed it, that's theft, or at least it's attempted theft, right?
I would say that's likely correct.
Okay. Ms. Burgess, so I know you said a number of times that there doesn't have to be proof that Mr. Hacker actually committed theft, but attempted to theft is sufficient. And you agree with that, Mr. Scissors?
Based on the reading of the statute, yes.
So, but to have attempted theft, the person still has to have the intent to permanently deprive the person of the property, right?
Correct.
It's just they didn't complete it.
Correct.
Or they change, or in my hypothetical about the pen, the person just changed their mind and changed their intent, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And
So in this case, Mr. Hacker did give the phone back voluntarily. I mean, no one like snatched it out of his hands, right?
I don't agree with that character.
Was there any testimony that someone took it out of his hands and?
Well, he gave it voluntarily to the gym manager when the gym manager said, I don't want to have to revoke your membership after he left the scene and they were asking him to give it back. So voluntarily is a little bit of a stretch.
All right, we're back on the record. I'm ready to make my decision, but first I wanted to make some preliminary comments, and I normally wouldn't make comments like this, certainly not as extensive as I'm going to make in a case like this, but this is an unusual case, and there's obviously political and social issues at play here and interest in the case. And I think it's maybe helpful to have someone from, hopefully an objective perspective to make some comments. And I'm not suggesting that I'm going to change the world with these comments, but I would like to say some things to hopefully get people thinking and maybe limit some problems like this in the future. We oftentimes we hear about the political spectrum as being the far left and the far right. It's like this, but in my take is it's really more of a circle that's closed at the bottom, and at the one side that people are self-identified at the left are very close to the people on the right at the bottom of the circle in terms of approaches they have and kind of beliefs. And at the very core issues they differ, but in so many different ways they're alike. And I can certainly see that in this case. And I think it's important in every aspect of life, but especially when people are really diametrically opposed, is to put oneself in the other's shoes and really ask themselves, what would I do if I was in this position that the other person was in? And I was struck when Mr. Hacker said that he essentially does the same things that he contends Mr. No does in terms of putting people's information out on the internet, publicly identifying people if he considers that person to be dangerous. And it's really striking that obviously there's some tension between the two of them, but they're effectively doing the same thing. And it just seems that they agree on the tactics, but they differ just on whose information should be out there. And they also disagree about the other person's tactics, even though they're doing the same thing. But the issue is not whether Mr. Hacker did the right thing or wrong thing. The issue is whether he had the requisite intent to rise to the level of robbery 3, which requires an intent to commit theft or attempted theft. And in order to do that, one would have to permanently deprive another of property, or keep it long enough so it effectively deprives the person of the property, and they'd have to have the intent to do that. And in this case, I can't say beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Hacker intended to keep Mr. Go's phone or to break it so Mr. Go could not use it. Rather, it would seem that Mr. Hacker he was frustrated in the moment and lashed out, but at least at a minimum, I can't say beyond a reasonable doubt at the moment that he grabbed the phone that he was intending to keep that from Mr. Go forever, that he intended to break it so Mr. Go couldn't get the video, he couldn't use the phone. So because of that, I'm finding Mr. Hacker not guilty. And I'm not, to be clear, this is not condoning what Mr. Hacker had to say. It's not condoning what Mr. Hacker had to do. And it's not a finding that Mr. Hacker didn't have this intent. It's simply a finding that I can't say beyond a reasonable doubt, which is a very high standard, that Mr. Hacker had this intent. And I will say, and part of it was, how quickly he returned the property, and maybe he returned the property only because he didn't want to lose his 24-hour fitness membership. Maybe it was just because he just said, "Why don't I even know I have this phone? I just pulled it away, and I'm just going to give it back. I didn't intend to do anything with it." I don't know what the actual intent is, but I can't say beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Hacker did have the intent to permanently deprive Mr. Go of the phone, and therefore he's not guilty. And I will sign a judgment to that effect.